morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Business Hour. Appreciate you taking the opportunity to join us, whether you're listening to our live broadcast or a podcast at your own schedule. The Weekly Business Hour is where Montgomery County and businesses throughout the world come to talk about the latest in business news, ideas to improve your business, and to be part of conversations that can make a real difference in your business. I'm Rick Schisler. I'm your host. I'm a Silver Fox advisor and the founder of OneBestConsult.com. A quick reminder, every week I mention this show is being broadcast live on YouTube, Facebook. Just go to the Weekly Business Hour page, click, and you can not only hear us, but you can watch us. Also want to do a shout out to our sponsor this week. It is OneBestConsult.com. That's the number one, BestConsult.com. That's a website and a community that I founded. It's based around the idea that common sense business advice is what really works to grow your business. We have a business community there. I encourage you to go to that website, OneBestConsult.com, where you can join us. We have a newsletter that goes out. We have tips, video tips, all kinds of information that's available to you for you to use at your leisure. So please, I encourage you, visit OneBestConsult.com to see how you can be part of a business community. I also offer my mentoring and advising services there, so if you're interested in one-on-one, you can find out about it there and join us if you so desire. At this point, the show gets real easy every week. It's the part where I encourage you, sit back, grab your pad and pencil, and get ready to take notes as we talk about everything business right here on the Weekly Business Hour. And today, we're going to start a new soup to nuts conversation. I always get excited because soup to nuts conversations always involve someone who is a quote-unquote expert. Part of that is their experience. They've been through it. They've done it. They've worked with people like you that are listening, along with many, many others, in some cases around the world. And today, I'm so pleased. We have Ralph D'Onofrio with us, and we're going to talk about what questions you must answer to market your business. Ralph is a former executive VP of Pennzoil Products. He served as an executive professor at the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship, and he's a Silver Fox advisor. Ralph, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to join us in the blooming metropolis of Conroe in Montgomery County. You live and work in the Houston area. And I think it's important people, marketing is sometimes a subject that a lot of folks shy away from. When they start a business, they got a product, they got a service, they got an idea, but they don't really consider how they're going to market that product. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, I think all we have to do is look at what's going on with our celebrating Apollo 11 over and over again. Everybody's doing it. What came out of that, in my mind, was that ideas are really nothing. Execution is everything. We had one man, our president, have the idea, and it took hundreds of millions of dollars and 10,000 people to execute it, okay? So you have to look at marketing as an integral part of this execution. You just can't have a good idea to sell $10 cupcakes downtown Conroe. We've got to find ways to execute that thing, okay? So this Apollo 11, if nothing else, will remind us we have to execute. And marketing is an integral part of executing whatever we do, okay?
I think that's a wonderful observation, the Apollo 11, which is a current event, because I saw all kinds of people tagging onto that in their businesses, hamburgers, ice cream, clothing, all kinds of things, say, with slogans, shoot for the moon, whatever. You're exactly right. It wasn't that they had an original idea per se.
No, somebody else really did their marketing for them, and they were clever enough to jump on it. So,
very interesting. I wonder how many billions of dollars of products and services were sold under that moniker.
Untold.
Well, let's talk about marketing. To me, the first step in marketing is assessing your business. What's your business situation? You've got, let's take an example. Let's get somebody starting a business. So it's a startup. So they're putting all their plans together. They're getting their money. They're doing the things hopefully they need to do before they start business. From your perspective, startup, how do they need to prepare their business to be able to market their product?
Well, whether you're a startup or for the last 20 some odd years, I've been working with owners of privately held businesses, and some of them have a hard time answering this question. But what you really have to look at is what problems are you solving, okay? And is the problem a desire on some business or somebody's part, or is it a need, okay? And that's what you have to really look at. Current example, I have a client who services compressors, valves, electric motors, does a big job. These are big motors, 35,000 horsepower motors, big compressors and so on. He has two clients. One happens to be a large city who never wants their pumps for the water, the sewers, or anything else to go out. Their desire is that their citizens should never have any issues. Okay. One of his other clients happens to be the prison system in Texas. When the pump goes out, they call my client, okay? So in a sense, he's like the tow truck at the side of the road. He's waiting for the accident to happen, okay? One's a desire, never have the citizens affected by bad pumps. The other one is a need. When the thing breaks, by golly, you got to get over here. So I think you need to look at what you're either doing or proposing to do. What kind of problem am I solving, okay? $10 cupcakes in downtown Conroe may be a need or a desire. We don't know, okay? But it could be done. But you have to really look at it. And I have clients who've been in business for a long time who have a hard time answering that question. So take a look at that first, okay?
You know, I think that's an interesting question. If you determine whether you have a desire or a need, because the marketing, I assume, is going to be different.
Of course, of course.
And great first question. Is it a desire or need you're seeking to fill?
Well, what problem are you solving?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no sense any of us getting to business, including this radio channel we're doing. It is solving some needs out there or desires out there. Everybody has to do that.
Or there may not even be a need or desire for $10 cupcakes in downtown
Well, we
Conroe.
don't know. we don't know.
Interesting question.
Okay.
Existing business. Okay, I'm in business for a period of time, 5, 10 years, whatever, a few years, and I'm going to step back and I'm going to look at my marketing. What questions, again, in an existing business, are there different questions that I need to
Well,
address?
I won't embarrass Rick with this, but I always say, what should this business look like when it's finished? No timelines. If the tooth fairy could come in tomorrow and wave her thing, here's what this thing should look like. And again, most people in business can't really answer that. What should this thing look like? Rick's consulting business, what should it look like when it's finished? Okay, same thing has to apply to whatever you're doing. What should it look like? And if you can't really, in my opinion, get a hands on that, you're going to be bouncing off walls, going in wrong directions and so on. It should be this. I should have 6 locations, 42 employees, 27 trucks, whatever. What should it look like? You don't have to put a timeline on this at all. This is just what should it look like if I could wave the wand and boom, here's what I look like, okay? And you need to answer that when you're wandering around and what problems you're solving. You know, it's tough.
You know, that's interesting because it takes me to another topic, kind of an overlap into what's my exit strategy, again, focusing on the business owner, but the idea that the owner has a vision, a dream, whatever, of what they want their business to look like. I think that's interesting. And that kind of brings you to the point, if you can determine the desire, need, you see where your product service fits, you get an idea of what it should look like. How do you encourage or advise people in general to set their overall marketing goals? Once they determine the desire, the need, is there any secret in that sauce of setting those goals?
Well, even though this may be the first day you started your business, your cupcake stand, we're all here eventually to monetize or sell this business, okay? Whether it's 2 years, 20 years, pass it on to the kids, the grandkids, but something. We're here to sell, I use the word sell, to monetize this business, okay? So when you start it, that sort of should be in mind, okay? If I get this up, I just noticed on the way up 2 or 3 more Demontron car dealerships on the way up here on this thing, okay? He's getting bigger and bigger, but I'm sure somewhere in the back of his mind, he's hoping somebody comes in with a check someday to do these things. How does he have to do it? Do you have to have brand names, what have you? You have to do the same thing, okay? So why would anybody buy your business if they didn't know about your business? Marketing, okay? And how are we going to do that? How are we going to sell those $10 cupcakes in downtown Conroe, okay? Because when you start that store, in my opinion, you should be thinking about, how do I sell this store to somebody else and monetize it and ride off on your horse with your saddlebags full of money, hopefully, on a thing. Okay.
Well, and you know, it's funny, I believe the same thing, is that when you are gonna build that market plan or adjust the plan as you go down the road and you're putting, always keep that eye on that end that you're looking for, that you hope for, whatever it is. I think that's very important. Well, let's talk about strengths and weaknesses of the owner and the business, because they can be different. I always like to talk about strengths and weaknesses of our owners of small businesses, because so much of the business typically is dependent on the owner, who they are, how they feel about things. Strengths. Okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm an owner of a business, and I need to gather together, put down on paper preferably or on the computer, strengths. How do you approach determining one's strengths?
Okay, let me take the opposite side for a minute. Managing weakness is hard work. Managing weakness is a headache. Managing weakness is a pain, and you know what, okay? So what you have to do is take a look at your business and where am I weak? Is it my people? Is it my cash flows? Is it my location? Is it the color of my trucks? Couldn't be me. Could it be me? Okay, where am I weak? Because that to me is where you need to put some real energy, because even though if you're strong in 4 or 5 other categories, this weakness is gonna negatively affect the other ones, okay? And managing weakness is a headache. It really is. And it's probably taken more of your time than you wanted to. Let's say your weakness is your employees. It's probably taken more time than you wanted to do other things, okay? Or your managing weakness is your marketing or lack of marketing or something, okay? So while looking for strengths, you've got to find that weakness in the thing, because it's going to take an extraordinary amount of time that you could be devoting to other things. Or it's a headache, or you go home at night and you can't get it off your mind. You can't sleep, and whatever it does to you, okay? So what I work with my clients is try to point out is what's weak in your system here, what's weak in it, and then go to work on that so you can really spend time on the strength. And sometimes, with our, sometimes the weakness is ourselves. I have a client who's strong on ideas, very strong on ideas. Implementing them is not so good. So I've encouraged him over the years to hire people who really can implement, do the job, work, do it, get out there and make it done, okay? It took him a while to realize he wasn't walking on water all the time, that he might have a weakness or two, but now he's done a much better job in the last couple of years of really hiring people who can get things done. He's never short of ideas, okay? But then he puts them out, and that was his weakness himself. He was implementing his own ideas. Didn't do a good job, just moved on to the next idea, okay? So,
Well, you bring up some questions in my mind, a couple questions. One is strengths and weaknesses. It sounds like it's also like an equation. You have so many weaknesses, you have so many strengths, weaknesses, and you got a scale.
Right.
And I've seen circumstances, I assume you have, where the weakness that you have, weaknesses plural or singular, are so strong that they pull or drag the strengths, and you really equal to. The equation says this business is just not going to work.
Right.
Like location is so bad, and you need the location for maybe not the most important thing, but it's up the line for everybody, whether it's logistics or being on Main Street. How do you respond to that? How do you approach the scale of strengths and weaknesses? And have you seen people who really got dragged down because the weakness was such a powerful force, or just almost impossible to overcome?
Yeah, let me think. I've seen people depend too much on family. I've seen people depend too much on people who think like themselves. Sometimes that's ethnic, sometimes it's not. Okay, I trust him because he's Indian, and I trust all Indians, and that's been a mistake. I've seen people trust people because of their education or their credentials, and my client didn't have it, but he somebody had got a degree from Yale, Harvard, or some such thing, and he must be wonderful on this thing, okay? And Rick just said, maybe sometimes you are in the wrong location, okay? I used to be in the quick lube business back in the 80s when it was growing like crazy. I can't tell you the energy we put into which corner we should be on, which way does the traffic turn? Is it easy egress and ingress? Can they get in and out all right? Can the guy coming up the street get to us, okay? You'd think we were doing brain surgery for pouring a piece of cement or asphalt on the ground, putting a building up, okay? So you have to really think about this. Does it make any difference where you are? Well, $10 cupcakes in downtown Conroe might make a big difference, okay? But if you're the guy supplying the batter and stuff probably doesn't make any difference where you are on a thing. So, you know, to me, you just have to think it out. Let's go back. What problems are you solving? Okay, what problems are you really solving? Okay, there's no reason for any of us to be in business if we're not helping overcome some problem somewhere. Okay, and if we can make it big enough, $10 cupcakes, because there's no $10 cupcakes within 150 miles of Conroe, we're solving a problem. With a lot of birthday parties, a lot of things could use those. That's what I'm trying to say. What problems are you solving? And then take a look at everything you're doing.
Well, there's a lot of moving pieces to this. And ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, we're to our first break for today's show. We're going to take a short break. I hope you'll stay with us. We're going to come back and talk about a certain degree of honesty that everyone needs to have when they look at their weaknesses, their strengths, and putting those down and reflecting on those. So please stay with us, and we'll be right back.
It's all about business on the Weekly Business Hour every Monday at 11 a.m. on Lone Star Community Radio.
A Lone Star Community Radio is ready for the summer. If you or anyone you know is looking for summer internship opportunities, a Lone Star Community Radio is a great place to grab the mic and be on the air. A Lone Star Community Radio offers a great opportunity to those interested in learning about the radio world all year round. Be an on-air personality, talk show producer, or YouTube, TV, podcast editor. Contact the station at info@irlonestar.com or call the station's message line at 936-647-3776.
An estimated 1 in 10 births will result in a neonatal intensive care stay, also known as the NICU. Overnight, a family can find themselves and their newborn baby in a critical situation. The Mila Foundation financially and spiritually assists families in need. If you would like to volunteer or become a monthly sponsor, please visit us at www.themilafoundation.org. Again, that's www.themilafoundation.org, because every life matters.
For those of you who like your partners, your gumbo, and your music salty, well, we're here to help with the music. Julian Shea here, host of Lone Star Country Nights Thursday, your weekly dose of roots and Americana and all the music that makes this part of the country special. We stir in Western swing, honky-tonk, Zydeco, Texas blues, outlaw country, and put a pinch of red dirt, and then we smoke it over a slow fire. Then listen to the results Thursday nights on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Not sure who to turn to when you have a problem in your business? Listen to the Weekly Business Hour on Lone Star Community Radio.
This is the Weekly Business Hour, and I'm Rick Schisler. I'm your host, and we're having a soup to nuts conversation here today about marketing and all the elements, some of which I doubt you've ever thought about, that go into putting together a good marketing plan and executing it. And we're blessed to have as our guest Ralph D'Onofrio. Well, Ralph, when we went to the break, we were talking strengths and weaknesses and how that all needs to be analyzed. And one of the things I think you do a great job is how you manage the weakness, because we're going to have strengths and we're going to have weaknesses. But one of the things I think is important is when I do this analysis, and probably do it multiple times if I stay in business a long time, because marketing plans change, is to be honest, to look in the mirror, if you will, and say, yes, this is a strength and this is a weakness. So when I record those and put them down, that I'm being honest about my ability as the owner that these are the strengths and weaknesses of the business and my strengths and weaknesses. What do you run into with that, being honest? How do you get people to be honest about those things?
Well, okay. I had a client who was an attorney and also a CPA. Okay? Interesting combination. And what she handled on from the legal side was mostly people who got in problems with the IRS and those kind of things. That was her strength on the thing. Believe it or not, she had the worst set of books I've ever seen in my life. And that was my primary role with this lady, was to sort of clean up her own backyard, if you would, okay? She did a fine job for others. She had a couple other CPAs working for her, I think one other attorney. They did a nice job with all their clients, and her bookkeeping was a mess. Fortunately, she admitted it. I mean, that's why I ended up doing it. Not that I am a CPA by any means, but at least I got our house in order, and we began to put things in the right column and that kind of stuff, okay? So she was doing a fine job, I guess, for other folks. Maybe didn't have the time, inclination, or something to it. But what caught her was she realized she had an issue and asked me in to help her out. So I worked with her for a couple of years, and it worked. And so we got all the right pigeons in the right pigeonholes after a while, and then she could have a clerk just put all this stuff in there, and she knew where she was. It was interesting. She was a very upscale, uptight, very rigid kind of individual, and basically her person or car were a mess. Okay, so she flighted everybody else except herself. I think we do that a lot. I think all of us do that a lot. Okay, we can sort of see the holes in the other guy's armor. We don't see it in our own. And we have to, if you're a businessman and a lot of people depending on you or your family is depending on the cash flows, whatever it is, you need to take a kind of a good look at yourself. What am I doing here? Can I really do this, or do I need some help on this thing? Or should I merge with somebody? Or should I sell out? Or should I buy somebody else? All kind of good questions come out of that.
And they're questions that have to be answered
Right.
honestly. Let's talk about some things that are going on in real time. Amazon. What's the impact of Amazon in the business world and the small business world?
What do you mean, aside from taking over the earth? I think.
Well, but what do I do about it? I mean, talk about Amazon for a moment.
What got me going, thinking about Amazon was perhaps a year or so ago, I had a conversation with a gentleman who was in the cement pumping business. You've seen those trucks. They pump cement into apartment buildings, building. This guy's in the cement pumping business, and he said, I certainly hope Amazon never gets into my business, which I thought was kind of an odd fear, if you would. I mean, of course, you can't tell, maybe Amazon would, but in further conversation, what he was really saying was the Amazon effect is affecting his business like it affects everybody else. And if you buy something from Amazon and it didn't fit and you ship it back, they probably credit your credit card within 2 or 3 days of receiving it. And his customers were saying to me, I ship something back and it takes you 30 days to give me credit. Why can't you do that? So the Amazon effect was hurting this individual, or beginning to nudge him in the cement pumping business. Here's what, if you got your pencil in your left or right hand, whichever, I want you to think about this. All Amazon is a continually improving operational process. A continually improving operational process. What you probably haven't done, if you're running a business, is look at your business as a process. And that's what it really is, okay? And you, in my opinion, with a little thinking, can do the same thing Amazon. You can continually improve every part of your operation because your business is a process. And that's the way they look at it. And if they happen to buy a grocery store to improve this process, that's their business. But that's all they do, is just continually improve that. When they first started building warehouses, they find two interstates that come together, and that's where they'd ship from. That was Amarillo and El Paso. Now they're going to get to you in one day. They have to build their warehouses in Katy, Conroe, and all these other places where they can get to it. So they just continually improve their process. And you as a business owner can do the same thing. But it just takes conscious awareness that I need to look at this process, because your business is a process, okay? And if you look at it that way, I think that maybe the fear that Amazon is going to take over the entire world here in 3 months will go away a little bit, okay? Because you can do the same thing they do, just continually improve your processes.
Well, I have a couple observations. First, I think that's a wonderful observation, a wonderful situation or analysis to use in one's business. Comparing yourself to Amazon, here I am on Main Street, and I do a couple $100,000 a year, but things I can learn. I've always believed that we can learn from the big boys if we're willing to distill it down. It doesn't take a lot. But secondly, and I think most importantly from my perspective on this Amazon example you give, is I believe we're absolutely in a world today, world of business, world of personal and all kinds of social, things are moving fast. And if you go into business today, I think it's so much difference as far as the tempo, the attitude, how things in general, regardless of industry, are moving than it was just 5, 10 years ago or 20 years ago. We had a history of businesses that you open a business, you work for 40 years, you turn out widgets, you do this, you deliver, and you didn't have to innovate. You didn't have to change. You did not have to improve your process that much. I believe that if you don't have a mindset and don't buy into that concept that you're talking about of continually improving your process, then you're not going to make it. You're going to die. And again, I don't care what business you're in. I'm sure there's an exception like the buggy whip business, but in your example, they're going to have to change the way they bill or something like that and collect. I mean, there are going to be changes in their process. So I think it's very important people hear what you're saying, and I think the Amazon example is a wonderful one.
Okay, right under where you wrote continually improving operational process, right, that nothing stands still for more than an hour, okay? Now, that, as Rick just said, that, you just got to stay on top of things and keep moving, but that gives us a big advantage because what that also means is structures don't stay in place very long. So we can have an opportunity to change structures or go in when a structure changes. Rick's example of, you went in and came out 40 years later doesn't exist anymore because the structure didn't change much in those 40 years. Now, because nothing stands still more than an hour, we have an opportunity to jump either on somebody else's change or help change it ourselves, okay? Because there is an advantage there, okay? Everything's moving so fast. How do I hook onto this and move with it, or how can I help it change, okay? Structures are very fluid because of all this rapid change. First, Amazon says they'll deliver in 2 days. Then they just said they deliver in 1 day. Pretty soon, I guess, with artificial intelligence, they'll read my mind, tell me when I'm out of toothpaste, and ship it to me before I even know I need it. I'm not sure, but somehow we can jump on that change of structure, all of us can, and make it work.
Yeah,
okay.
And you have to have the attitude.
That's right.
You've got to have the attitude if you start a business to do that.
Nothing lasts for more than an hour.
It's a foundational issue today.
Right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our Part 1 conversation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We're here in Part 2, I think, of a great soup to nuts conversation, as I like to call them, where we take you from the beginning to end, hopefully on a subject. In this case, we're talking about marketing. Our program, we have Ralph D'Onofrio with us. Ralph's got a great career. He's done a lot of work with a lot of companies. And if you listened to Part 1 last week, you heard quite a bit about some of the case studies, if you will, and people he's worked with. He's got that experience he brings to the table. And our soup to nuts conversation is entitled, What Questions You Must Answer to Properly Market Your Business. And Ralph, our conversation in the first segment or first part of this soup to nuts 3-part conversation, a lot of it revolved around business, what your business was, what you offer, these kinds of things. Basic questions, hard questions for, as you said, for a lot of folks to answer. And it kind of threw me at first, but I get it. I guess I sort of wrapped it in a different wrapper, but you really need to understand your business, your purpose, all these different things before you sit down and say, okay, I'm going to put a marketing plan together. I'm going to market my services. And that's something people really need to understand. You need to do the groundwork, I guess is what we'd call it generally in business, before you try to build the building.
Right. Think about this. The marketer's role. I notice I just had to pull an old note out, and I trademarked this in 1998 or so. But the role of the marketer is really not to lead the horse to water. It's not to make him drink. The marketer's role is really to make the horse thirsty. Okay. And the worst example, of course, of leading the horse to water and making him drink is the car dealers. You know, you got this fancy car and it has everything you ever wanted in your life. And then they say it has this. And by the way, we're giving you $10,000 off, $12,000 off. Come out here and buy one of the things, okay? They told us they sort of got us fascinated with the car, but then they say, come out here and drink, and I'll give you $10,000 off. That's not the role of the marketer. The role of the marketer is to make the horse thirsty for us to go out there and see what we've got, okay? And instead of just beating them up with price or whatever it is they do, the good marketer just sort of tempts us. You know, what does Corona say? Find your beach. Okay, how long they've been saying that? And then all you see is pictures of people on the beach and having a good time and so on, okay? But what are they saying? Drink our beer? No. They say, find your beach. Make us thirsty. That to me is just some good marketing. Honestly.
Yeah, and that's a great example. I love the one, stay thirsty, my friend.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. By the way, drink our beer, but stay thirsty.
Stay thirsty,
yeah,
right?
That's right. Make the horse thirsty, make me thirsty on the thing, okay?
Well, that's great stuff.
And the other thing, I think this may seem extreme, but any product or service can probably be turned into an experience. The best example is Apple, of course. They've made their computers, their phones, their everything else an experience. All right, if you've ever been to an Apple store, it's an experience. So think of the idea of making any product or service you're doing turning into an experience. The question you should always ask yourself, could we charge for this? Okay, now most of us can't, but if you sort of look at the idea, what are we doing here? We've got $10 cupcakes in downtown Conroe. Can we charge people to come in and look at our $10 cupcakes? Okay, now that's a little tongue-in-cheek, but if you sort of work your way back from that on what are we really doing here, and how we're trying to do this, and how we're making the horse thirsty, it's not a bad idea to sort of visualize, could I really charge somebody admission to come in here and see my cupcakes, or whatever it is we're doing, okay? It's not a bad way. We're talking about being a marketer. You have to have a bit of imagination to be a marketer, because the other guy out there has a bit of imagination too, okay? That's the problem, but so try to visualize, not just plain old, I run an ad in the local paper, or I use brighter red than the other guy does, or whatever this stuff. You have to sort of build your imagination into this. And if you personally can't, I'm sure there's a lot of people around who could help you do that make a living trying to help you be a marketer, okay? Even every big company has advertising agencies and design firms and everything outside, okay? Don't get the horse to drink. Make him thirsty.
Yeah.
Make him thirsty. Okay?
Well, and I think that's a great piece of advice for anybody. And again, small business people, you're small business owners, whatnot, you're listening to this because big companies have advertising agencies, whatnot. There are so many marketing firms and individuals out there that work with small business. There's some great ones. You can find out about them. If you have a question, contact me. Again, Rick at irlonestar.com. I'll give you a list of books to read. There's all kinds of resources that you can connect with that help you make the horse thirsty. And I think we're going to stick with that, Ralph. I like that example. Well, let's kind of dig a little bit into the nitty-gritty of marketing.
Wait a minute, just one more point. There's nothing wrong with being an idea thief, okay? I've been one all my life. Most good marketers have been, okay? Don't take something out of your industry, steal something from some other industry and use that in your industry. So try to be an ideal thief. If you're a small business, can't afford these other things, use your imagination. Why is that guy doing that? That color red on that truck over there would look good on my storefront or wherever we are. It's like, just be an idea thief. Okay?
Yeah.
There's tons of them out there. we can steal.
And we just hope the jails aren't full of
Yeah,
the
well,
ones who got
that's right.
caught. No, imitation was
Right.
that sincerest form of flattery, so is the old expression, but I agree with you. Small businesses, we've got to beg, borrow, steal. We've got to find things that we can utilize. And again, the big boys have invested the time and the effort, and companies, and whether it be the color of the truck or the window or whatever it might be, always have your eyes open to see how things are
Yeah,
working.
marketing is not rational. Thank goodness, marketing is not rational. Always think about benefits first. You can come up with the credentials later, okay? What's the benefit of my $10 cupcake here, okay? But so marketing is not rational. That's not the way it enters our mind. What's the benefit? Ooh, look at that cupcake. Wow, okay. Then look around for the credentials, or could I do better? But do the benefits first. I think you'll be surprised that people aren't going to think that deeply if you have a good proposition to them. Hey, this is all right. I can justify that. I like that. I want that. Bingo. Okay.
Especially if you can get them to pay $10 for a cupcake, right?
Some people do apparently.
Yeah, well, it's been done, I'm sure. Let's dig down real quick into some what I call nitty-gritty nuts and bolts for just a moment, because one of the things that I think is important is where does your business fit in the current marketplace? So now you've got this idea, you've thought through it, you've done the things that you've talked about. Now we got to go into the marketplace. We got to look at competition, product service offering. What is it that's unique about what we're doing compared to everybody else? And what advantage can we even get? I heard a wonderful piece the other day about how a company set itself out because of the way it delivers its products, its box. Even though its product might be the same as 100 others in the marketplace, people are inclined to buy it because of the way it's presented and delivered to them. Any comments on that?
Well, I am always amazed at this outfit called Chewy, which I guess is for pet owners, has come out of nowhere. I'm not sure it's an Amazon company or not, but it's come out of nowhere. What are they delivering? Stuff you could buy down the street at the store, right? PetSmart or PetGo, wherever it is. There's nothing new what's in the box. But I can't tell you how many of those Chewy boxes I see in my neighborhood, especially on recycling day when everybody's out there getting rid of them. Okay, so what do? Just a better way to do it, faster way to do it, ship in 2 days. And Chewy, nice term, okay? Nice term. So somebody was very clever, but they're not really doing anything differently, are they, than anybody else who ships online, but Chewy. And I guess they got competition. There's one called Bow Wow, there's another one out there. But Chewy has sort of seemed to dominate it because of the use of the name, okay? And what's the benefit when you hear the name Chewy? You don't have to answer, okay? But Chewy, okay, I can do that, right? I
Well, it's
load up.
memorable.
Huh? Memorable, that's right. Memorable, okay, so it's slipped in. So you have to admire whoever Chewy was, whoever thought this up. Very clever. Not doing anything different except, what? Making it convenient for us. I think the commercials say is the dog food bag too heavy to lift? Is the cat litter bag too heavy to lift? We'll lift it for you. Okay, pretty clever.
Or the UPS driver. I'll give you a quick backstory on Chewy.com. You picked that example. I believe it's PetSmart or maybe Petco owns that company. And they were trying to extend or protect their turf, if you will, in the pet food business. And they sell other things, toys, same kind of things you'll find in the store, in the brick and mortar store. And so they've extended out. Well, my wife and I were using that service for a year or two for the reasons you mentioned, to a heavy bag she couldn't carry from the store, load it in her car or whatever. And so she started using it, and it became, you had to have a minimum order. Something kind of began to turn her off. So she went back and did a price comparison because they claim you're saving money. And she says, really, we're paying about the same at the store. So now she's back at the store buying the dog food, cat food in smaller sizes, though, so she can pick them up. And she's convinced herself, I don't know if it's true, but she's emotionally convinced herself that it is not as cheap, but just a little bit more. So she gave up what she considered being somewhat of a hassle, having to order minimum quantities and staying up with it to get the free delivery or whatever the proposition was. So it's kind of interesting that when you decide where you fit in the marketplace and what you do, and quite frankly, I can't imagine delivering a 40, 50-pound bag of dog food in a cardboard box how that is efficient and I can really cut the price that much. But they did it. And like you say, millions of people obviously have bought into this because their sales continue to grow.
Benefits first, and that's all we grabbed, right? The benefits were, now your wife is looking at the credentials a year and a half later or something.
Yes.
And she's beginning to really think this out. But in the beginning, the benefits of whatever Chewy was suggesting overrode everything, and you became a customer. Okay. Amazon has 100 and some odd million people who pay for that Prime each year at $119 each. Quick math, that's 11 or $12 billion. You can do a lot with 11, $12 billion. Walmart says you don't have to join, we deliver free, and they're having a hard time getting traction with that. It's coming, but they're having a hard time getting traction, with free versus $119 a year. By the way, you have to renew this every year, okay? And yet, at the moment, Walmart's having a hard time getting traction saying free, 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 because somehow Amazon has made us think I can do anything for $119. I can get this, I can get this, okay.
Well, they shotgun their offering, I know, because I'm a Prime member, and they offer movies,
Right.
free music, free. Now, it's not all the music and not all the movies. They're very conscious and they have a plan of how they can get more out of you. But the idea that you get the same day or 2-day shipping free and all that. But so they shot, in my opinion, because they've already pulled some of the services back. Obviously, they weren't used or got too expensive. Whereas poor old Walmart has just got free.
It's
If
free,
you buy
and
$50 or something
and
like
they're
that.
struggling, and they're struggling to get traction with that. It's interesting.
So it's people need to hear and understand, and even in your small business, as you mentioned, every hour the world changes, is you will come out with or adopt, if you will,
Right.
or steal your word, an idea, and you'll put it in your business. But you need to always be aware that over time, like my wife and the Chewy.com, she started looking into the credentials, and at some point she became a non-believer and switched her loyalty and her business
Right.
back to what she's doing.
She adapted.
with some
small-
adjustments. Yeah,
She
she
adapted smaller packages.
and it
so on.
happens. It happens
That's
every
right.
day. So don't think you put your world's greatest idea out there and it just goes. And even if you execute it well, because there's always going to be somebody down the street, around the block, across the country that's working to beat you competitively wise. Let's talk a little bit about employees. That's something that you and I talked about before, about people, and people say, okay, marketing people. Well, it doesn't do any good to have the best marketing plan and program in the world if you don't have good people around you and so on and so forth. And give us your thoughts on where people fit into all this.
Well, let me just a little background. When I was a year out of college, I think I was 22 years old. I got my first managerial job. I had 4 people, and if my memory serves me right, probably $50,000 worth of revenue. If you fast forward that about 30 some odd years, I ended up with close to 1,000 people I was responsible for in $1 billion business. I tell you those two milestones because between those two, I have made every HR mistake there is in the world at least twice, okay? And a few marketing mistakes and a lot of managerial mistakes, but my biggest learning curve was with people, okay? And here's what I really got out of that. Get your pen and your pencil, your left or right hand. You cannot manage people. You'll drive yourself nuts, and you'll drive your employees crazy by trying to manage them. What you can manage is activity, and you can manage space, and you can manage time. And the best example of that is NFL football on Sunday afternoon. You've got 11 people on one side facing another 11 on the other side. Okay, each one of them has an activity they're supposed to do when the ball is hiked. Everybody's in a space, right? And there's a lot of timing involved. How long before they snap the ball? The guy stands still, and counts to 3, and then goes to his left, or he backs up and. But you cannot, very slowly, you cannot manage people. You can manage their activities, you can manage space, and you can manage time. So if you have employees, think about what you're doing with them. You're hollering at them to get over there, do this, jump up and down with it, or you're saying, here's the activities I want you to participate in. I want you to, the timing on this is so-and-so, and your space is at the end of that room or over that table or whatever it is. Think about that. You'll drive yourself nuts and your employees nuts trying to manage people. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Well, that kind of comes under the guise, maybe, if I'm hearing you right, where you micromanage. They always talk about that because that's really what they're saying. My
that's right.
experience is you're managing the people.
That's right.
And they call it micromanaging,
And
but
you-
really you're managing the people.
And you can't do it. And but you can manage what you want them to do, their activity. You can tell them how much time they have to do this in, okay? And what space they're supposed to be working in. That you can manage. That you have complete control of. And it just doesn't work the other way, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. In 30 some odd years, I made every HR mistake at least twice, maybe more, okay, because I thought I could pound my chest and tell people what to do. Didn't work.
And they'll
Didn't
do
work.
it. Yeah,
Didn't-
that's
didn't work.
interesting.
Didn't
That-
work very well.
That goes into leadership and all the dynamics. It really does come back to how you really can manage or not manage, if you will, people and what you've got to manage. It's a great piece of advice. You know, one of the things is we prepare our marketing or change our marketing or evaluate it on an annual basis is to look at our workforce and look at their skill sets and look who they are. What can they deliver what I'm going to try to market, whether it be a product, service. And so many times I've seen things out of sync. The company represents itself as one thing, right?
That's right.
Like next day delivery, but they don't have a workforce or perhaps a facility. But if you don't have people that have the mindset, hey, everything's got to go every day. Because I personally was in a business where we cleared the line every day. And at the end of the day, if there were some orders hanging, I had to stay there and make sure, as part of my job as a manager, personally, to make sure that's how important it was that these 2 or 3 orders that had not been matched up got out some way, somehow, whether I had to take them myself or whatever. But it was a mindset. And people got to understand their workforce, you know, that they hire, they train, has to match what they promise,
Right.
Either directly or indirectly.
Yeah, and at the moment, hiring good workforces is tough because there are more jobs out there than there are people available. And if they don't feel they're being appreciated or managed correctly, or whatever term you like to use, they can walk. They can walk, okay? And if the Quick Lube doesn't treat the guy right, he goes down and works at McDonald's, or vice versa, okay? And because there's too many opportunities out there. So again, let's go. You manage activity, which is probably your biggest job. You manage space and you manage time. Think about that. You know, if you could manage people, let's go back to my football analogy. If you could manage people, the quarterback would never throw an interception. The blocker would never miss a block. The end would never drop the ball, okay, because you just tell them, don't drop the ball. That's how you, okay, that doesn't work that way. And the same thing applies in your business, okay? So I'd like you to be at a certain spot, and hopefully the ball will be there, okay? That we can manage activity, we can manage that space and that time, and if a little luck, everything turns out. But as we know, if we ever watch football on Sunday afternoon, it doesn't work that way, okay? Because there's 11 guys on one side trying to do opposite what the other guys on the other side, okay? Well, life's like that. Your business is like that. So activity, space, and time. Don't drive yourself nuts trying to manage people. Don't drive them nuts either. Okay?
Well, yes, and then they'll leave.
That's
if
right.
You drive them nuts, right?
That's right.
Well, you know, one of the particular areas that I always find interesting is compensation. You know, we have conversations about compensating. I work with my clients, compensating. How should I compensate? You know, and we'll go check and see what the guy down at McDonald's, what's McDonald's paying? That's what I got to pay at the Quick Lube and whatever. And I agree. That's one angle, but I think go back to the marketing and all the things we've talked about, where we want to be, what we offer. Are we compensating people at pay, benefits, whatever the package is, compensation package? Are we wise enough, smart enough that we're paying the compensation at a level where it will attract and retain people who can be trained, that have enough on the ball, that can deliver what we want to deliver with the business? Again, so much time spent on evaluating what others pay, and a lot of times, unfortunately, well, how little can I pay? Because, you know, the bottom line. But then we have a workforce, or have people in the workforce is mostly what I see. It's not the whole work. that can't really, just don't have the ability, the training, whatever, to deliver what we've promised or what we hope to deliver to the market.
Yeah, well, I think one of the advantages you have as a privately held business is you can hire what you need and hopefully pay for what that need is. I'll go back to example of I had a client who was a heck of an idea man, but he as far as getting things done, he was tough, okay? And he's gotten smart, and he hires people for specific jobs to get things done, okay? And whether that's $45,000 a year, or $85,000 a year, or $125,000, it's specific to what he needs. Now, so as owners of privately held business, I think you have that advantage, where you're not in a cookie cutter, this is what Exxon does, this is what Shell does, you're not in a cookie. You need somebody to do it. What's it worth to you? What's it worth to you? You got a business to run, okay, on this thing.
Oh, and
So-
you got to deliver.
And you got to deliver, right?
What do you got to deliver?
That's right.
Either that or change what you're going to deliver, right? Lower expectations.
That's right.
You can hire a lower level employee, theoretically.
Okay, and then what happens that when you have the lower level, you can't find your truck?
Well,
Yeah.
or there's no
Right.
market for lowering your market expectations. There's not enough market.
That's right.
$10 cupcakes when people are not going to spend more than $2,
That's
period, the whole market, or most of it.
That's right.
So it's very interesting. Well, Ralph, as always, it's a great conversation we've had. In the second part, I appreciate, again, you bringing your wisdom, experience to the table and sharing with us. And I look forward to our next conversation, part 3, ladies and gentlemen, on how to, in a soup to nuts form, what questions you must answer to properly market your business. Well, this is Rick Schisler. I'm the host of the Weekly Business Hour, and we've had a wonderful soup to nuts conversation entitled What Questions You Must Answer to Properly Market Your Business. We've been visiting with Ralph D'Onofrio. Ralph's got a long background in marketing, business, running business units, and he's also a Silver Fox advisor, as I am. So we've been around, we got a lot of experience, and hopefully we bring a little wisdom to the table, and most importantly to me is we give you ideas that you can use potentially in your business today. Well, Ralph, last time we were visiting, part 2 last week, we talked a lot about people, managing people versus, the activities that you suggest. You can't manage, or in my words, micromanage people to get them to the kind of results you want. You're ultimately going to fail. But we're going to kind of switch gears as we move along in this conversation. Talk a little bit about some nuts and bolts issues, such as how you build your budget. Not so much about numbers, but some very important things you need to consider. And again, talk about some marketing tools, websites, get your take on any of those that stand out today. And then we'll end up with a general discussion on some very important business topics. So let's kind of jump in as we get started. The topic is budgeting, but again, not by the numbers, if you will, because to me, budgeting, particularly when you put a business plan, marketing plan together, involves not just the money, but the time that you're going to invest in that activity. So I may have $1,000 to spend, or $100, or $100,000, or $1 million, but how much time is that going to take me? And in my case, the business owner, am I willing to invest in this endeavor of marketing? Because sometimes we can farm things out, or we can do them ourselves, or a combination thereof, right? What's your take on advising somebody about developing and then implementing their marketing plan as far as their personal involvement?
Well, as I listen to you, I think, it's like we have to start at the end and work our way backwards, okay? You have this, if you're talking about somebody who's not in business yet or in business, what do you expect out of this business, okay? And then begin to work back. If you have got a cost of goods is 50% or 60% or 40%, do you know that? How much is left over? How much can you do? Do you need to market per se, or do you need to promote? Okay, or if you put your money behind the $10 cupcakes by going out to the county fair, by going to weekend events and that kind of stuff, do you need an ad budget, or you need a promotional budget for this thing? Do you need to paint up the side of a truck? I think, but you sort of have to really start at the bottom. Here's what I want this business to be. I think I should be doing this, or I need to, I personally need to take $50,000 a year out of this budget business, and you back up and you back up. But you're gonna have to spend some money. You just can't sit by the side of the road and, with a, what am I trying to say, a banana board and say, here it is, okay? So where does your money go? Where does your money go? What's the nature of the product? I'll go back to my original statement. It was, what problem are you solving, okay? And if it's desire, then maybe you need a lot more elaborate budget. If it's need, you just have to make sure you have a wrecker on every major intersection on the weekends, because you're gonna be picking up a lot of wrecks, and it says on the side of your record that here's my phone number, I've been doing this since 1947 or something, okay? But I think you have to back into it. You just have to back into it. I wish there was some magic answer. I worked for a large corporation. We had my marketing budgets were in the $90 to $100 million range, but they were really based on how much profit we were going to give them. And we went to them and said, we need $100 million this year. And they said, good, we need $100 million profit. So it all fell back at our laps. Okay, what are we going to do to generate it, this damn thing? And some years it didn't work. Some years it didn't work. Our competitors were tougher than they expected them to be that year. Other things came in, so we had to back down. So I want to suggest to you, as a small business owner, you sort of do the same thing. Maybe you just say, okay, what would 5% of my revenue look like if I spent it? And what can I get for that? What would 8% look like what can I get for that? What do I need? What problem are you solving? And that'll sort of drive you. If you just get a pencil and paper out. I've cut down at least 7 rainforests with the yellow pads in my lifetime, just trying to figure these things out for myself and for my clients also. Okay, what do you really need on this thing? But if you got to start, if you don't know where to start, just say, okay, I'm going to spend 5% of my revenue on marketing, advertising, and see what that looks like. And if it only comes out to $14.75, we probably have a problem. But it'll probably be a lot more than that. And it'll give you.
Well, it's the old age issue of the cart and horse. You say pick a number, which is a great way to start, 5%, 3%, 10%, just to start, get you moving forward.
Right.
Because, do I budget, or do I know what the revenue, well, you don't know your revenue until you evaluate what you can expend on marketing, advertising, and things that go from that. And I think that's something people miss. For an example, I've run into this more than once. Someone develops their product service. They answer the question, perhaps, is it a need, or, they take into consideration our friend the thirsty horse. They do some of the basic things, but then they determine that to capture a client or capture a customer costs X. It's one of the hardest things, particularly new businesses, seem to have. I worked with a client some years ago, and client acquisition was not a numbers game with them. They just needed a handful of clients because they were, brought in quite a bit of revenue per client. So, and they wanted to stay fairly small. They made those decisions as far as the owner and what he wanted to do with the business. And so we got to work on calculating what can they afford to bring in a client. Well, it was $700 to $800, which just blew them away because they were concerned they were spending money here on marketing, advertising.
700 or 800 was high or low?
No, the actual number was based on the history of the business. They could afford to expend $700 to $800 to acquire a new client.
Okay.
Because those clients spent X number of thousands of dollars in the first 12 months. That was kind of the formula that we looked. But anyway, my point was, it really surprised them. I mean, they had more money theoretically that they could expend.
I got it.
Than they really dreamed. I mean, they were looking at the cost of the newsletter in those days, printed newsletters, right? The mailing, all those things, and the other things that they were using to bring these clients in. So I guess the thing that always comes to my mind when I'm working with folks in this area is to, one, see what it's going to cost you to acquire a client. See what it's worth to you. Make sure you have enough money or resources available to marketing, advertising. make sure you have enough to acquire enough clients to take you to the point where that revenue that you either need or want or both can be obtained. Because so many times that great idea, right? And all of a sudden they don't have enough money, or they don't recognize it's going to cost them $700-800 when they only really can afford $10 to $20 to acquire a client.
Consider this, if you're selling products, you're a middleman. Okay, you're really not much different than Kroger or HEB or something. You're bringing something in the store, you bring something in, and then you sell it to somebody else. Enormous pressure. Nobody wants to be a middleman, but there are a lot of them out there. But so, what would it take to make your product, if it's unique, or your store, if it's unique, different? Take a look at it that way. If you're in the service business, you're really in the relationship business. So what kind of money do you have to spend to build relationships, keep relationships? Do you have to join the Kiwanis? Do you have to join this group? Do you have to be out there at the lakeside barbecue every weekend? Okay, because you're in the relationship business. So that will sort of drive where you have to spend your money. Personally, I never want to be in the middleman business, but a lot of people are. A car dealer's a middleman, a grocer's a middleman. They take products in, sell it to somebody else. That takes one kind of budget. Whereas if you're in a service business and you're really in the multi-relationship business, what does it take? What do you have to do? Where do you have to spend your money for those relationships? Okay, and whether, let's say you're air conditioning, electrician, those plumber, those kind of things. Where do they have to put their money? I've noticed in my neighborhood, it seems to be painting up your truck if you're in the air conditioning business. My truck is more outlandish and garish than yours is, okay? So maybe that's where they're putting their marketing dollars into that kind of stuff, okay? Maybe you have to, in a sense, maybe you have to put your marketing dollars into training, because a well-trained employee doing something for your customer may be the best marketing you could ever do. Besides, you give them new clean shirts all the time and hats and stuff. But the thing is, maybe your marketing is really training, okay? So it all depends what you're trying to accomplish in life, okay?
Yeah, and you got to think about that. And
Yes,
you got to
big
say,
time.
do I have enough money? Am I willing to spend that money? Do I feel good about that on the hats and the shirts or whatever, the wraps around the
Right.
trucks that are, lit up or whatever? I worked with a business in the beginning of my career, and we had in those days, gosh, I'm going so far back, I don't even want to go there, but we had $1 million plus budget, advertising budget. But the best expenditure, as the owners would explain to me, is the trucks. We had a fleet of trucks going around. He says that's our single best, most cost-effective way to advertise.
Right.
You can do away with all the other ads and different things they did, TV, radio, whatever, in the local market. But it was the trucks. So you never know, but you got to really think through that and settle on what it is, and then make sure you can afford it, and then move forward. You touched on something, one of the things to kind of transition to the next area I'd like to talk about, some of the marketing tools that are out there today. I mean, you have a great story, that you've shared with us last week about Amazon and about the impact and the thinking it has brought about business. The web, the internet, they have become so much a part, and even more so every day, of almost every business. Any thoughts? I mean, I'm a small business guy. I'm operating on Main Street. I'm a plumber, got a plumbing company. I've been at it. What do I do about all this? I mean, the plumber necessarily not going to be threatened by the web, but yet they are, because people will send out information all the time. And I get an email saying you do business with Joe, or on Facebook or LinkedIn. And what do you do? How do you approach that as a small business? Where do you need to put the web in your thinking?
Well, is it in your thinking in the first place, okay? Remember, my earlier thoughts was that, well, I don't think we have to be frightened of Amazon taking over the world, is that they are a continually improving operational process. Look at your business as a process, just like they do, They're buying Whole Foods was part of their process, okay? I don't think they're doing very well with it, but that's another 15 minutes we can do there, okay? So look at your business as a process, and does the web fit into this thing? having your employees look a little better, dress better, have a better shirt on. It's all a process, but it may take a little a change in your part to think that my business is not a process. It's not getting up in the morning, send my trucks out, bring them back. That all is a process, okay? How can you continually improve that? How can you continually improve it? You can't do everything every day. Aside from Amazon, most of the rest of us don't have those resources, but we can certainly think about improving delivery, improving service, improving what our invoices look like. Do our customers understand what we're saying to them? I had a client a number of years ago who was a trucking business, and his rates were fixed at the time. I don't know, and he couldn't change it. What could I do? He kept saying, "What can I do?" Well, you know what we did? We cleaned the trucks up. We treated his invoices, delivery tickets look horrible. Some of his drivers looked horrible too, and we cleaned those up, and we made the trucks look okay, and the delivery tickets, and they began to their on time. Deliveries improved, and all of a sudden his business got better just because he was improving his processes along. He couldn't change the rates, couldn't charge any more, any less than the next guy, but his processes began to improve. And he'd been in business for a long time. It was one of those things he just never thought that being on time with a driver that looked like he hadn't slept in the truck would improve his business, but it did. Because it was a process. We were just improving the process.
Well, and the web has got to be part of the process
Yes,
for
it
most
does.
people. But
Yes, it
yet
does.
I see some businesses, if the person that owns the business is inclined or attracted to the internet for whatever reasons, then they'll go whole hog, if you will, to use an old expression, and they'll jump in where they'll not do other things that they could be doing that potentially be a lot more cost effective as they do their market. And they'll begin to invest money in it, and because it's the newest toy or it's whatever. And my encouragement to people when we first start talking about, okay, how does the internet or the web impact my business is take a deep breath and realize that it is only one piece of your marketing puzzle.
That's right.
It's not the whole puzzle, even though we love to talk about Amazon, right?
Right.
And what they're doing. There are a number of businesses that the web is not conducive to selling their products.
What do we do? Well, let's go back. What do we do using the web for? Selling, or just brand recognition, or just telling people where we live? What are we going to use it for?
And those are all great questions.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going, and that will obviously affect your budget you spend on the thing. Okay, if you every time I have a client who, I guess I'm right on this, he spends about $40,000 a month with Google on what words not to use, not what to use, what not to use. Okay, so he's got almost a $500,000 tab. Okay, on this thing. It has improved his business enormously. So now, in the scheme of things, it's not that much of an expense. To start with, everybody choked, okay, I think, but it proved out, here's the words you don't want to use to sell your product, which change apparently daily, rapidly, and all this thing, okay? So it is in his, I'm not quite right, but if he was closing 3 out of 100 prior, he's doing 7 or 8 out of 100 now by using the right word. No, by not using the wrong words.
Right.
On this thing, okay? But that's an important part of his business. I mean, his money he spent. Okay.
Right.
But that doesn't does it help his brand? I'd have a long discussion on it. I'm not sure it helps his brand. Certainly help his bottom line. But
Right.
but
And ultimately, that's where we're driving,
yeah,
right?
that's
We're
right.
all going to the
Okay.
bottom line.
Yeah, but we can't say it's a marketing tool.
Well, we've got a few minutes left, and I'd like to just get your take, if you will, because of, again, your experience and your knowledge and perception of what's going on, some just general topics. First, future general trends in business. I mean, you're out there working with all kinds of businesses every day. Any general trends you see in business today, marketing-wise or otherwise? Maybe one or two that, if I'm in small business, I need to generally be aware of them?
Well, I'll go back to, I'm a broken record now, but nothing stands still for more than an hour, which translates to my mind, we've got to be enormously flexible. We've got to be enormously flexible on your ideas, on your pricing, on what you offer. That doesn't mean you can't, in some cases, take things away from what you're offering and still do a pretty good job, okay? But, you know, are you, what problem are you solving? Are you helping somebody save money? Or are you going to help them to make money? And how can you do that? How can you be? So you personally have to be flexible as can be, okay? And in your hiring, you better look the kind of people that aren't too rigid and stuck in their own ways at the beginning of the week. Now, I don't know what group of people that is, but I assume they're out there, okay? But it's just moving awful fast. It's just moving awful fast. And maybe you just put the $10 cupcake out on the sidewalk and everything in the store is only $2. I don't know. Okay. But you're going to have to be flexible in your thinking, your feeling. It can't be my dad always did it that way or my dad started this business in 1947 and that didn't work anymore. It just doesn't work anymore. I can't think of any better way to, there's probably a better word than flexible, but you just sort of have to stay loose. And if you can't, maybe it's time to look for somebody to buy your business, and that's a lot looser than you are, okay?
Well,
I don't care what it is.
I know some people who would be disqualified, the owner. I mean, the individuals would be disqualified because it's just not in their nature. And that's okay to not be flexible or flexible enough to meet these challenges of being flexible, more flexible, whatever you want to say. I think that's interesting.
The thing you have to keep in mind is supply on about everything we're involved in is up, okay? Walmart now has one-day delivery, okay? Supply on about everything is up. Demand is not, okay? We're in one of those stages in life, and just almost about every major category you can think about that is supply. There are more people supplying than there is demand out there. Every day, every morning, all you have to do is look at the price of crude oil and natural gas, but that applies to a lot of other subjects also, okay? The airlines are getting smart. They pull a few planes off because they had a few more planes than they had demand for. Are you with me? Of course, Boeing's problem gave them some emphasis on that, but the point is that the supply on just about everything we touch out there is up, and demand is not, or at least not growing enough. So what happens when we have more suppliers than we have customers? Do I have to answer that question? No.
Well,
we have to be a little smarter, faster, quicker, better on the thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
to stay in the winning column
Yeah,
versus
that's
being a
right.
loser and perhaps
That's
fold
right.
up and close.
That's right.
Ralph, we got about a minute left, and I wanted to ask you, again, from your perspective, business segments in this fast-moving world. We've all agreed on that, and the flexibility required. You and I are just right in line with each other on that. What business segments in general do you see out there for the future that you'd recommend if somebody's saying, I'd like to go into business, this is what you should look for?
I'll go back to what I said a few minutes ago. Service, 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 okay? We're all, whether it's Chewy sending the service, what can we do? How can we serve that? How can we help you? How can we make it faster? How can I ease your burden? The population's great, getting older. I'm sure there's more opportunities to service older folks with whatever, I don't know, honestly. Now we deliver the cupcakes, all right? So be with me, but I think if you're gonna do something, take a look at, can you be in the service industry somewhere doing something, okay? I've got a client whose son ended up with a couple trucks, too many in his business, all right? Well, there are people out there that can hook you up with people that need half loads back, driven back, that kind of stuff. How do you pay for that? So what this client's son did was got himself out of the trucking business into the servicing these guys who need the truckloads, okay? Doing just fine, 2 people sitting in an office somewhere instead of having a bunch of trucks running up and down Interstate 45 on this thing, okay? Service, service, service. So just set your sights on how the hell can I help other people? How can I do this? And make a living at a reasonable cost.
And have fun, no
And
doubt
have
about
fun.
it.
Yeah, you gotta keep the smile on your face.
Well,
okay?
Ralph, once again, deeply appreciate it. We did 3 segments, lots of good information, lots of ideas, and encouragement to people in small business. If folks want to be in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do it?
RalphWorks@AOL.com.
Well, and I encourage folks, follow up. Ralph has got a lot of information, love to talk to you, and potentially you might want to engage him.
Yeah.
So Ralph, again, thank you.
Okay. Tell him you saw me on the radio. Okay.
Yeah, well, we do that here, right?
Okay,
we do a
right.
videocast.
That's right.
Thanks so much, Ralph.
Okay, you're welcome. Enjoyed it.
OneBestConsult.com, a community of small business owners where you as an owner can find answers to the most pressing business questions you have. Not sure who to turn to when you have a challenge in your business? Turn to the folks at OneBestConsult.com. That's the number one, bestconsult.com, where you can always find advice you can use based on common sense business experience. Join our community of like-minded business owners at OneBestConsult.com.